Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
So hey there, guys, welcome back. I'm excited to be with all of you guys, and today is really our first official episode of Multifamily Inc., also known as Multifamily Inner Circle Inc. What I thought I would do, today's Friday, I'm recording this, it's Friday, January 8th. It's actually, today's my dad's birthday. So an important day for me. My dad passed away, as you guys might remember, right before Thanksgiving. My dad was my first real mentor. So it's great to launch this sort of new version of the podcast, and also to be talking with you on what would have been Dad's 74th birthday. So happy birthday, Dad. Up in the sky, up in the clouds, up in heaven. I appreciate all your mentorship and advice that you've given me over the years, Dad. And so today, what I wanted to do was launch this new version of the podcast. What I'm going to do is every Friday at the end of the week, just kind of record and tell you guys about all the things that happen with our deals this week. That way, you guys could get a real live feel for what's actually going on in my business and certain tactics and strategies that I can give you based on real world live multifamily apartment raising capital strategies. So let me just tell you about just a few of the dozens of things that we had done this week. So actually this morning, I just came back from a 52 unit in Cleveland. This is in the Gold Coast of Cleveland. It's one of the best parts of the Cleveland market, right on the water, on the very west side of Cleveland near Lakewood. We've got a 52 unit under contract. We did our due diligence, which means we went through all the leases. We compared the leases to the rent roll. We compared the leases to the bank accounts to make sure that the money was actually collected. Then we compared the bank accounts to the financial statements to make sure that they were accounted for from the bank. We went through every single lease. We went through every single lease applicant, their application. We compared that to every single unit. We looked at all the insurance. We looked at the property taxes. We looked at the monthly cash flow. We looked at the expenses for water, sewer, gas, electric. We reviewed all those bills, all the bank statements, and all the financial records. We cameraed the sewers. We found that out of the sort of 12 specific sewer lines that we actually cameraed, 2 of them actually had cracks that we're not really concerned about. The water's still flowing through them because the crack is on the top of the sewer line, which means the water flows at the bottom of the sewer line down underneath the crack. But it is something that we'll have to address in the future. Probably costs us about 15 to 17 grand to fix it, but we're not going to retrade it. We're not going to change the asking price, which is $3 million is the purchase price. We're not going to change that because a $15,000 fix is not worth jeopardizing a $3 million asset. By the $3 million asset, it's going to be worth $5.2 million when we're done with it. So there's, over $1.5 million of equity after our soft costs and after our CapEx. It's not worth risking $1.5 million for a $15,000 fix. It's only a 1% difference. So we went back to the seller. We explained what we found, but we told him, listen, the good news is that we're not going to retrade the deal. We're going to go forward. Now here in about an hour after I get done with this podcast, I'm actually meeting with Glenn and Tyler, my business partners in our apartment business. And we're going to just talk through, again, the leases. We've got copies of the leases, compare those one final time, and then we'll talk through what we think the price per square foot is on the units when we lease them out. Finalize that, make sure we're comfortable. We're also meeting with our commercial lender this afternoon at around 4:00 to take a look at the loan. We're getting a bridge loan for this particular building because there's only 40 out of the 52 units that are currently occupied because there was actually a fire. There was a fire on the 4th floor in the front unit, unit 401, and then unit 301 and 201 and 101 were all damaged because of all the water that, was shot up by the fire department into 401 and leaked down through 301, 201, 101. Also, there's a bunch of smoke damage up on the 4th floor that, all of those units are unoccupied. So there's 4 units that are total new construction, total tear outs, rip outs, redo, insurance claim. And then there's 6 more units that are smoke damage, which are all going to be renovated by the time we occupy the building. So 12 out of the 52 units will already be totally renovated. We'll be able to charge premium rents for those, which is fantastic. Then our goal is to turn the rest of the units, spend about $5,000 a unit for the other 40 units, which is about $200,000, and then also add a courtyard in the middle. The building is shaped like an upside down horseshoe or like an upside down U. We're going to then finish a courtyard in between in the open place of the U and add in a couple pergolas, add some like park benches and places to sit and those kind of things for everybody. And then, places where they can have a drink, they can have a smoke, they can enjoy the outside, enjoy the sun. So today, actually, we have to give the seller the go, no go. Our due diligence period actually ends tomorrow. So we're going to wrap that up today. So that was a big part of our week. The second thing is we have a 54 unit in Niles, Ohio, which is a suburb of Youngstown, a very B-class suburb of Youngstown. And we had an LOI that was approved, a letter of intent that was approved before Christmas. The PSA was done over Christmas. Obviously, the attorneys, everyone's out for the holidays, people are taking time off. So that PSA was returned to us, and we've executed that. So we're fully under contract now. We've got to put up a $100,000 earnest money deposit. We've got to get that over to the seller on Monday, by the end of business on Monday. So that's important. Now, the interesting thing about that 54 unit that we're buying is it was actually part of an adult living community. There was 2 separate parcels. One parcel was actually an assisted living and rehab facility. The other parcel was just basically an adult independent apartment living community, just, regular retail pay apartment living, but primarily for seniors. And it looks like, from what we can gather, the assisted living portion of the business, they closed that facility and they moved about 5 miles down the street or 3 miles down the street and built a massive new complex. And what they did was they left the old complex, the old assisted living complex and rehab facility vacant, empty. So the guy that we're buying this from was actually a rehabber. He was a residential investor who did rehabs and flips. He was able to get this 54 unit, which was the independent living apartments for seniors, under contract. He just bought it back in July, and he paid about $1.2 million for it back in July. Well, we have it under contract now for $2.35 million to buy it from him. So he's going to make a shitload of money. He's going to make a ton of money in the past 6 months. So imagine yourself as a rehabber buying a building for 1.2, selling it for almost 2.4 million within 6 months. Now he spent probably around $300,000 to $400,000 turning the units, improving the units, putting in new flooring, putting in new kitchens, countertops. Nothing super expensive like Formica countertops, but they're nice. Luxury vinyl plank flooring, linoleum flooring in the kitchen, stuff like that. Didn't spend a ton of money, but probably spent $5,000 to $7,000 a unit. So we're buying that building, and we expect that building to be completely renovated, all 54 units, all updated. The only thing we're going to have to do is lease them out. By the time the building is done and we finish off whatever leftover improvements there are and lease it out, we're going to be into it for about $2.6 million. It's going to be worth $4.2 million. Okay, so those 2 deals, the 2 small deals, 52 Lake and 54 Niles, about 1.5 to 1.7 million of equity each. So those two deals will raise my net worth, my balance sheet, by between $3 million to $3.4 million. Not bad. Most people work all their lives to save, slave and save to accumulate $1 million and then hope to live on that $1 million, earn a 6% return and, live on $60,000 a year. While these two buildings are going to net us about $180,000 a year as soon as they're stabilized, which will be about 18 months from now. So over $3 million of equity and 180,000 of net free cash flow just from those two kind of small deals. They're only, really small actually. Those are not even medium size or large apartments, 50 units, not a big deal. Also this week, super exciting. We had our letter of intent accepted actually last week between Christmas and New Year's, not the day after Christmas. Christmas was on a Friday, but Monday morning, we got our letter of intent accepted on a 220 unit, which is, I'm not going to tell you too much about location because it's very, very new for us, but the letter of intent was accepted. It's 220 units. It's in the Cleveland suburbs, and we got that approved for $11.65 million. We're budgeting about $1 million of capital improvements and soft costs. It's going to pencil out to be worth $18 million by the time we're done with it. This is a B-class building in a very B-class market. But right now the rents are just around $600 on average. The current owner is a great dude. Actually is from the Pittsburgh area. He's probably a Steelers fan. But he's got a really nice apartment portfolio in Pittsburgh. This is the only asset that he owns in the greater Cleveland area. So he was willing to sell it. It was off market. Nobody knew about it except for us and the brokers. They brought us in. We got our offer approved at $11.65 million. So still a lot of work to do. We have 30 days of due diligence, another 30 days of financing. We have to raise $4.5 million to close that deal. But this week, actually on Wednesday and Thursday morning, Wednesday kind of all day to Thursday morning, I spent almost all of that time texting, calling, talking with investors and potential investors. And I said, listen, we need to raise $4.5 million for this deal. I could go out and raise that from 30, 40, 50 investors, $100,000 increments, $100,000 minimum. But what I'd rather do is work with about 15 investors who can invest $300,000 each. That would be our $4.5 million. And so I called on about 25 of our existing investors who I already have relationships with, guys that for the most part have invested in deals with us before. And I've already raised, again, this is a soft raise because this is just barely under contract. Soft raise 4.055 in soft commitments. So literally in 48 hours was able to raise $4.055 million. And we need $4.5 million. So I'm only $450,000 short of my goal. Now, some of those people will fall out. Some of that won't work, but we're way ahead of the game with raising capital. Getting capital, closing that deal will not be a problem if it goes through due diligence, which we expected to. We did it. We walked about 4 or 5 units with the brokers. Everything pretty much checked out. We're going to push the rents from $600 to $800 in this market. $600 for a 2-bedroom, all the way up to $800 for a 2-bedroom. That will push the value to nearly $18 million. So that all happened this week. Super exciting. Also, we found out right before Christmas, we had a 407 unit that we partnered up with some JV partners of ours. Was originally penciled out to refinance and produce about $5.5 million of refi proceeds. Well, when the appraisal was done, the appraisal came in a little bit short. Then there was a bunch of COVID escrow holdbacks that the bank, over $1.5 million that the bank is holding in escrow for principal and interest escrows. So long story short, that $5.5 million of originally projected cash out refi proceeds, none of it's going to happen. But there is about $1.7 million locked up with the lender that the lender's going to hold on to and then eventually release it in 6 to 12 months from now. So what we decided to do instead was we packaged up that 407 unit with a bunch of other properties we have down in Albany, Georgia. We call it the Albany A Portfolio. We packaged that up. We put all of it on the market, and sure enough, we got an offer on it. And so we expect that buyer to get through due diligence next week and sell and close that portfolio. It's over 850 units that we're partnered on. And we expect that to close in mid-February, potentially late January. And that would be a massive, massive transaction. 850 units at over $60,000 a unit. It's an over $50 million deal. So we worked on that this week. Also, we have another portfolio we call the Albany C Portfolio, and the same buyer that's buying the Albany A Portfolio, which includes that 407 units, also made an offer to buy the Albany C Portfolio. That's supposed to close in late February. That's over 980 units that I'm involved in. There's more units that our joint venture partners have packaged up with those 980 units and offered them for sale. So if that was to sell off, that's almost 1,000 units that I'm involved in, plus additional units. So we got an update on that. Hopefully that will close in mid to late February. We also have another portfolio of close to 800 units in Macon, Georgia, that is also under contract and supposed to close at the end of February. So 800 units in Macon, 850 units in Albany, and another 980 units in Albany, all on the market very quietly, all under contract to sell and close. So you could imagine in February, we're going to buy a 54 unit, buy a 52 unit, buy a 220 unit, sell 800 units in Macon, sell 850 units in Albany, and sell another 980 units in Albany. So this is February and March is shaping up to be absolutely bananas when it comes to our portfolio and all the movement, all the moving parts. We also got word, we have a 216 unit that we own with some JV partners down in Lawton, Oklahoma. And we've owned that now for almost 16 months. We have a bridge loan that's going to come due in March of 2021, about 2 months from now. And so that is also scheduled to refinance. That's fully stabilized. We did a bunch of improvements. It was actually a massive fire in one of the buildings that burned out 6 or 8 of the units. Those units are currently down and being renovated, but we're going to get the insurance dollars that's going to cover those renovations. But 216 units, we call it 216 Crosby, that's set to refi in mid-February. That's going to return $900,000 to our investors that they're going to be able to reinvest. So we're going to be able, we were originally projected to get about $600,000 of cash out refi proceeds. But because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are doing COVID escrows, they're protecting themselves by putting principal and interest aside in these COVID escrow accounts. We don't think there's going to be really any cash out refi proceeds, but that will come back to us in 6 months to 12 months from now. So we're going to get the cash out refi proceeds, just not in February or March, but that will return all the investors' principal that they invested, but just not get the cash out refi proceeds. Also, we have another 164 unit in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, Ohio. I'm partnered up on this one with another JV partner, a good friend of mine named Jack Petrick. And that 164 units is also set to refinance in February. Again, we bought that almost 16 months ago. At the end of February, early March is going to be 18 months. We have a bridge loan. That bridge loan is going to expire. And we can either extend that bridge loan or we can refinance and pay off the bridge loan. And right now we're scheduled to refinance about 40 days from now in mid-February. Again, scheduled to have about $850,000 of cash out refi proceeds, but because of COVID, the bank's probably going to make us put about $600,000 into a COVID escrow account for principal and interest. That will then set aside. Hopefully we'll get that money 6 months from now, 12 months from now. But we plan on holding that property and the property in Lawton, Oklahoma long term for the next 5 to 10 years or longer.
My newest and most powerful real estate investing book, The Flip System, is now available. And for a limited time, you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. Using the same proven principles, secrets, and investing strategies I'm sharing in this book, I've been able to personally close over 750 highly profitable real estate deals over the last 15 years, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million of private money, and acquire over 2,000 units of apartments. Get my newest book now for free for a limited time at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast.
As these all close, this is gonna put us on track to close our 13th large apartment complex after we close on the 220 unit. It's 3,271 doors or units. And it does not even include our residential portfolio of duplexes and quads and little deals like 5-unit deals and 16-unit deals and stuff like that. By the way, this is some of the crazy stuff that you see. We had in one of our small buildings, it's a little 16-unit that we own in Akron, Ohio. We got word, we went down to collect rent on a number of the properties. When we bought it, we almost bought it like with no real due diligence. The seller was like 85 years old. He kept track of everything with a pen and a piece of paper. We paid cash for the building. The guy had like no records to give us, no leases to give us, no leases, none of that stuff. And so, but we bought the building because it was a good deal. We knew that we could jack up the rent. So we bought it for $540,000. We actually, out of the $540,000, we actually paid a wholesaler a $92,000 wholesale fee. Imagine that. So the real purchase price was $448,000. We paid the wholesaler $92,000. And so our total all in was $540,000. We raised $600,000 of private capital and we paid all cash for the building. We paid ourselves a small acquisition fee of about $17,000. And then we set the rest of the money aside for renovations, repairs, and operating capital. But we found out this week that there's a prostitute living in the building. We also found out that one of the tenants is sort of just randomly walking around in the parking lot at night with a gun. So, prostitutes and guns. It's like, this isn't really what I signed up for. This is not the type of buildings that we typically buy. We typically buy B-class buildings in B-class areas. This is firmly a B-class area, but obviously some of the tenants here are D-class tenants. So what do you do with the prostitute and the guy with a gun? Well, they're already on the eviction sort of kick-out list. And here's the things about these eviction moratoriums. So these eviction moratoriums, federal, Donald Trump signed the massive package, the stimulus package, almost $1 trillion right before Christmas. That included an extension on the eviction moratorium. Well, the eviction moratorium is you can't evict for non-payment, but you can still evict for not renewing someone's lease. And so a lot of these leases are month-to-month leases. So now we're evicting for non-renewal of their leases. Okay, so this is a big deal. This allows us, so when we acquire a building, we actually prefer that about a blended 50-50 or 60-40, we prefer that about 50% or 60% or 40% of the leases are month to month. We like that because we want to be able to turn some units, kick out some of the bad tenants, kick out some of the people who are paying low rents, ask them to pay more, and then be able to kick them out with just a simple month-to-month lease instead of an annual lease. And that annual lease might not expire for whatever, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months from now. So on 16 acres, this is going to allow us to kick out the prostitute and the guy with the gun and pleasantly ask them to leave. We've got a lot of tenants that love the building that want to stay there, live there, but they're realizing based on these two bad tenants that they don't know if they want to live there anymore. So, our goal is to raise the rents about $150. The rents are about $550 blended average, $550. We're going to jack them up to $700. Then we're going to refinance. We were all in for about $575,000. That's just a little tiny apartment. That one's going to be worth $950,000 by the time we're done with it. Also this week, I'm really excited because I spent some time with some good friends of mine. I spoke to a friend of mine named Justin Donald. If you haven't followed Justin Donald, do that. Listen to his podcast. His podcast is called the Lifestyle Investor Podcast. I was a guest on the podcast. I think I was episode number 4. So definitely go into iTunes or YouTube and look up Justin Donald, the Lifestyle Investor Podcast. Look up my episode with Justin where he interviewed me. It was episode number 4. Also, I interviewed Justin for our podcast. I think it was episode 160 something. I can look it up, Accelerated Investor Podcast. I think it was episode 168 or 164. Let me see here. Single mom. Let me see if I can find it real quick. 9-point takeover plan. Actually, Justin's going to be episode 170. We haven't even released it yet. I'm about to release it next week. We're going to release it on January 13th. So it just depends on when this podcast goes out and when you hear this. But Justin is actually releasing his book. And his new podcast has already been released. It's got tons of ratings. I think it's got over 100 ratings within like a couple weeks. It's amazing. Again, I was episode number 4. Listen to that episode. It's fantastic, by the way. But Justin just launched his new book, which is also called Lifestyle Investor. That book launched on January 12th. So make sure you go check that out, buy his book. And he's got what he calls the 10 commandments of lifestyle investing. And what I love about his book is not only what I've learned from it, his 10 commandments are fantastic, but also he invested in one of our deals. He is a passive investor with us in the Macon portfolio that I talked about earlier. And that deal, 204 units, was a part of that total portfolio of over 800 units that Justin invested in. That deal purchase price was $12.75 million. We've got over $1.6 million of rehab and capex, all in for $14.84 million with a stabilized value of $21 million. And so Justin invested in that. I met Justin actually at the Capitalism Conference. I was a keynote speaker on a panel with Ryan Moran and a bunch of other amazing speakers, Tom Wainwright, other guys that spoke at capitalism.com. And I met Justin actually over a drink in the hallway. We started having some bourbon together, and it turns out Justin's a baller. Justin's friends with guys like Hal Elrod from The Miracle Morning and Ryan Levesque from The Ask Method, both best-selling authors, friends of mine, friends of Justin's, investors in our deals. And so check out Justin's book, The Lifestyle Investor, on Amazon. Also check out his podcast. So I promised Justin we would support his launch. That happened this week. So guys, and the takeaway from that is like, you just never know. You just never know when you're going to meet somebody who can introduce you to other amazing people. Justin's a total giver. So I want to support his book launch because he supported me. He's invested in our deals. He's introduced us to amazing people. But Justin also has an amazing book and an amazing podcast that you should definitely download and listen to, talking about some of his rules for investing, like quick return of principal. Another rule is make sure you can cycle your money, meaning you invest in a deal one time, but you get equity in that deal. Even when your principal is returned, you get equity in that deal forever in perpetuity. Right. I think Kevin O'Leary made the word in perpetuity famous. So when Kevin O'Leary spoke at my event back in 2017, I was excited to talk to him, and he's talking about all the deals he's done in perpetuity, where he continues to make cash, continues to make money on deals, and he's leveraging his income and building multiple streams of income. Also this week, I spent some time listening to my friends Robert Ritzenthaler and Rod Khleif. They have a new deal that they were pitching to their investors. So Robert and I have talked about JVing on a number of deals in the past. Rod Khleif and I have been on each other's podcasts. We've talked about JVing on some deals in the past. We actually had a deal in Shaker Heights, Ohio under contract right before COVID that we were going to partner on. We decided to retrade that deal and ask for a lower purchase price. They did not accept our retrade. They took the property, put it back on the market. It got under contract by a new group. That group also asked me to step in and joint venture with them because they know I can sponsor loans and they know I can raise a lot of capital. That deal fell through because the sponsor, which was not us, which was another group, couldn't raise all the money they needed. And so the deal went back on the market and actually finally sold. But Robert and I created a friendship over that deal. And I listened to Robert and Rod Khleif pitch their latest deal called Cottonwood. It was a $39 million deal in Dallas, Texas, 270 units. And I listened to them raise $13 million for their deal, which is pretty cool. I love to listen to other people give pitches, right? Pitches of their deals and how they present deals and how they sell deals and how they raise capital and how they, pitch deals to investors and kind of queue them up and how they're going to manage them, what their business models are. So one of the best things you can do to learn about apartments is to listen to how people pitch their deals and then listen to how they actually operate their deals and how the operations compare to the pitch. Okay. That's one of my favorite things to do is to see, okay, did the pitch like outperform the actuals, or did the actuals do better than the pitch, or did they line up? So listening to Robert was cool. I listened to his podcast. Also, we have an Airbnb that we run in the Cleveland suburbs. It's actually in Broadview Heights, Ohio. If you're ever in town, I've got an amazing Airbnb in Broadview Heights in Ohio that you can rent on a nightly basis. And that Airbnb has been rented out the last 8 nights in a row, which is great. What we realized for Airbnbs and for nightly vacation rentals is that those vacation rentals that are in the city, in the urban core, those are only renting out about 20 to 30% of the time because people don't want to rent. They don't want to live. They don't want to be in the city because of COVID. They just don't want to be on top of each other. They don't want to come across too many people. Everyone's still distancing to some degree. But people love to rent nice properties. So this is a 3,000 square foot property on 4 acres in the Cleveland suburbs with a 4-car garage. It's an old farmhouse that we renovated. It's beautiful. You can look it up if you want. 2801 West Royalton Road in Broadview Heights, Ohio. Go check it out on Airbnb and VRBO and also on Zillow. 2801 West Royalton Road. So I actually stayed there overnight with my wife and kids on New Year's Eve. That was fun. God, New Year's Day was only a week ago. It's crazy how fast. I felt like this week's just a blur with all these things I've been telling you about. All this stuff literally happened this week. And so the other thing that we do is, obviously we do the business and we coach, right? We do the business and then we teach. We do the business and then we mentor people who want to do the business like we do. And so with all this experience and all the different things that I've been doing this week, obviously we're super qualified to teach this to other people. So we sent out some emails this week to our members, people who follow us. We have over 100,000 subscribers and members. We had over 200 people raise their hand and say, yes, Josh, I want you to mentor me this year. I want to learn about apartments and multifamily and raising capital. Will you mentor me? And so we're currently emailing back and forth with them right now, kind of through a hand raiser type of campaign, people that are saying, yes, do I have the time to do this? Yes. Do I have the motivation to do this? Yes. Do I have the money to do this? Yes. And we had some people enroll in our coaching program which is a $25,000 a year coaching program. We have other programs, but this one in particular is $25,000 a year. So we had several new people enroll in that, which is great for me because I love to do the business, but the business does not take me 40 hours a week. It doesn't take me 60 hours a week to run my apartment business. Okay. And so I've got plenty of time to coach and read and mastermind and go to my kids' volleyball games and coach volleyball and help my kids with their homework and silly stuff. Like today I had a meeting and then all of a sudden the internet went down. So, like I'm not off in some far off place. I'm home with my wife and kids to help them with what they need at home, including when the internet goes down, when they're, virtual homeschool learning, digital learning. So that's important to me. Also this week, I'm getting my teeth fixed. All right, see this tooth right here? I got this one tooth's been crooked. I got braces when I was 16 years old. I remember I was so goofy in high school. I was athletic and I was popular and I had all my sports buddies, my friends. I dated, cheerleaders. I just had a great high school experience. But I had to wear braces and I wore glasses and my hair was parted down the middle. Imagine that, right? Braces, glasses, and my hair parted down the middle in high school. And I was still sort of popular. I was still sort of, one of the jocks who had a beautiful high school cheerleader girlfriend. Funny. But once I got out of high school, I got my braces off. I went and played college football. I wasn't exactly wearing my retainer every night. I was probably in the bar too much or, again, dated cheerleaders, chasing the cheerleaders around in college. So I didn't want my retainer and this tooth went crooked. I've got this one crooked tooth right here. So finally, now I'm 44 years old. I'm finally going to get that tooth fixed. I got a new Invisalign tray this morning and I'm wearing that and it's pushing my teeth forward. Hopefully by the end of February, I've got straight teeth. And so all of these amazing things, all this fun things are happening. My kids are back in school this week, but they're virtual learning. They're going to go back in the classroom January 19th, which is in another week. And they'll be back in school wearing masks. My girls are playing club volleyball, which is so exciting. My oldest daughter, Juliana, who's 12, she worked her butt off. When she was 11 years old, she played 11s volleyball. She couldn't even serve overhand. When she played 12s volleyball, I was her coach. She made the second team, the second highest team out of 4 teams. She made the second team. I was her coach. We had a great experience. We had a lot of fun. I'm a good volleyball coach, but not a great volleyball coach. Then all summer, she worked on her game. She went to all the open gyms. She went to the tryouts. She did private lessons. We pay for private lessons with amazing instructors. And she's an outside hitter. So, bump set spike, she's the one that gets to spike the ball on the third hit. And she's getting really, really good, really talented. But I give her a lot of credit because she also 2 years ago was diagnosed with scoliosis and she's got a pretty significant S curve in her back. And so she wears a brace, 20, 21 hours a day. And she's amazing at, she has a lot of self-confidence. She's got a lot of self-esteem. She's definitely got days where she's down or days where she doubts herself, just like all of us adults do. But she wears this body jacket, this brace, 21 hours a day. But so proud of her because she made the top team this year. She made the national team. And so now this week, we're also going through the rigmarole of trying to figure out, are they going to have tournaments with COVID? And if they have tournaments, are they going to wear masks? Are they going to allow spectators? Are they going to allow any spectators? One spectator. She's got tournaments in Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Indianapolis, Detroit. She might go to Vegas if they qualify for nationals, Pittsburgh, all these crazy things. So my wife's just kind of ripping her hair out, trying to figure out, are we going to go to these tournaments? Is she going to play? What's going on with COVID? Are they going to wear masks? What's going on? But I just love the fact that they're back in the gym and they're playing. These kids just love sports. They love school. They love their friends. And I think it's very, very confusing for all of us about who we should be hanging out with, who we should be spending time with, who we should be, what should be happening with COVID, this and that. So especially for a 12-year-old, the daughter is 11, my son is 9. They're not seeing their friends very much. And so it's a very confusing time for them. So I think as parents, to be home, to be engaged, to listen, when my kids are home and they're kind of confused and they just start talking, and sometimes they start crying. I think as parents, we always want to solve, especially men, we want to solve the problem. So what I've been trying to do is just listen, to not necessarily offer a whole lot of advice, but just to listen. That's really, really important. The other thing that I've been doing this week, which is part of my goals for 2021, is every night before we go to bed, I've always wanted to spend more time reading. I like to have sort of a quiet, calm house. My wife, me, my kids, to be off of our devices, to be spending family time together, and for there to be a calm, quiet experience. I think it's important for kids. It's important for adults too, to know that they're going to bed in peace, to know that they're going to go to sleep in a peaceful, secure, safe environment. And with COVID, obviously, that's put that in jeopardy for everybody. So what I did was I grabbed the new book. This particular book that we're reading, you can see behind me, I read dozens and dozens and dozens of books. One of my favorite books is actually this one here called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's a great one. Influence by Robert Cialdini is a great one. Unshakable by Tony Robbins is a good one. E-Myth Mastery by Michael Gerber is a great one. Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson is a great one. The Cleveland Clinic Way. This is an amazing book that's written by Toby Cosgrove, the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. My wife and my son, their experience of my son's emergency delivery and emergency C-section, and emergency surgery on my son's throat. That's actually, believe it or not, it's page 1, chapter 1 of that book. And so some amazing books, but the book I'm reading right now is called Next Level Thinking by Joel Osteen, the pastor of Lakewood Church down in Houston, Texas. So whether you like Joel Osteen or not, whether you believe in, whether you're faithful, whether you have religion or not, I do. I was born and raised a conservative, Catholic, Christian, still go to church every Sunday, still pray with my kids every day, multiple times a day. But this book is amazing. So I'm actually reading to my kids every night about next level thinking. And the book is all about self-confidence. It's all about self-esteem. And I really love it, especially because if there's one gift that I want to give my kids, if there's one thing that I think is most important that us as parents deliver to our children, it's not a nice new car when they're 16 years old. It's not a brand new iPad. It's not a new phone when they're in 5th grade. It's not, all these material things. The one thing I think that's most important that we give our children is self-esteem. It's self-confidence. Because if you have self-confidence, that gives you an open door to do almost anything in your life. I got an email from one of my subscribers this week who said, Josh, I can't do it. I can't invest in real estate. I can't do it. The world is against me. I can't raise any capital. I can't find any deals. And this just to me sounds like somebody who's defeated well before they even got started. So imagine that for a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old or a 9-year-old. We don't want our children to feel like they're defeated before they ever even start. Right. So I remember telling my kids this past week a story about how when I was young, when I was about 8 or 9 or 10 years old, my mom sent me to swimming class. I learned how to swim, but then they wanted me in swimming class to dive off the high dive. And I was convinced before I ever jumped off the high dive that I was going to splatter all over the ground and hit the water, and it was going to be hurtful. It was going to be painful. So I could never really dive off of a high dive because I had a preconceived idea that I was going to fail. This is going all the way back till I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I remember every time I tried to dive off the high dive, I would lift my head up. And as I lifted my head up, I would lift my chest up, and then I would do a belly smacker onto the pool, and it hurt really bad. And so I didn't really learn to dive until I was well into high school. And dive off a high dive was even more. I had my friend Sean Gorius, who's a passive investor with me and a good friend of mine since second grade, that really taught me how to dive when I was at Louisville basketball camp when I was like in freshman or sophomore in high school. That was really when I started to learn how to dive off of a high dive. So again, I think as kids, I already had a preconceived idea that I was going to fail. So if I can help my children and you can help your children, if you don't have any kids, if you can help younger people, if you can mentor a child, big brother, big sister, help someone who's younger, give them confidence. It's going to give you confidence. If you can't find time to read, bring your wife, bring your husband, bring your kids into your bedroom at night and sit down and read as a family. This past week has been awesome for us. Because we've been sitting down and reading. The only night I didn't read to them was last night because everyone was really tired. We went to sleep a little bit early. But that's another thing that I did this week that I thought was, so we've gotten off to a really good start this year. We've got over 3,200 units of apartments. We've got 3 big deals that we're going to close in February and March. We've got 3 or 4 deals that we're going to sell. We got 2 deals that we're going to refinance. We've got a prostitute and a guy with a gun in another deal that we're figuring that out. I've got Justin Donald launching his book, Robert Ritzenthaler pitching a nice deal that I got to pay attention to, an Airbnb that's full. And I also worked out 5 out of the last 6 days. I've got a calendar in my basement. Guys, you want some ideas around getting things done. I'll just give you this one piece of advice and then we'll wrap up. What you track will expand. What you track will get better. What you track will succeed. What you track will improve. So I've got these notebooks. I've got one right here. I've got 2 more in my backpack, which is in the kitchen. I take tons of notes. And so because we're tracking it, because I keep meticulous notes, I've got PowerPoint decks and Google Docs that I keep notes in. Because I keep meticulous notes, I see things getting accomplished. I see things improving. And I don't have any guess. Like when I go to bed and wake up in the morning, I have no guess about what I need to do the next day because I track it, I write it down. So I see these things as they're getting better and better. And that helps me and my team and my staff improve. So as a CEO, I like to be the guy who tracks and reviews and keeps my own personal notes on everything. Nothing slips through the cracks because I like to write. I spend a lot of my day taking notes, writing, taking track of things. And then those things expand, they improve, they get better. Okay. That would be my piece of advice to you. So invest in multifamily apartments, raise capital. That's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is kick out prostitutes and people who have guns out of your apartments. My next piece of advice is download the Justin Donald Lifestyle Investor podcast. Buy his book, Lifestyle Investor, on Amazon sometime after January 12th when it's launched. And also read to your kids at night. Empower your kids to have personal self-esteem and self-confidence. Super, super important stuff. And as always, I just want to say thanks to all of you who have listened to this podcast. I so enjoy sharing what I've learned. I hope it's impacting you, impacting your life, impacting your business, whether you're in the gym or on the road or you're at home listening to this, wherever you're at. I love you. Thank you so much for engaging with me. This is such great therapy for me to talk to you on this podcast. And also, if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with me, I can mentor you to buy multifamily properties, invest in apartments, and raise capital, just send us an email at joshcantwellvip@gmail.com. Okay. And just reference that you're interested in apartments, and I'll start to walk you through. We can have a personal conversation via email. joshcantwellvip@gmail.com. Just shoot us an email there. We'll talk to you about how we can help you, learn more about you, what we think will fit, what kind of programs we have that might help you in your journey this year in 2021. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a review, share this all over social media. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hey, Josh here, and do you want to win a free Accelerated Investor t-shirt? All you have to do is give Accelerated Investor, our podcast, Accelerated Investor, a rating and a review on iTunes, okay? Do that now. Then send us a screenshot on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. What we're gonna do then is every week we're gonna pick our favorite rating and review, and we're gonna send that person a free t-shirt and maybe, again, some other cool, fun stuff as well from Accelerated Investors. So again, don't forget to take a screenshot. Leave a rating, review, take a screenshot, send it to us so we know exactly who you are. And then once a week, every week on the podcast, we will announce a new winner. Don't forget to take a screenshot and send it to us so we know exactly who you are. We'll announce a new winner every week.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.